one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
Got a double dose of those drums. How'd you like that? Little extra snare for you. I said they don't want just a single dose of fife and drum. They want the double. A double, please. And I ordered one up right for you. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's good to have you here. And it's a new week. It's a new week, 7:01 p.m. on the East Coast on the 29th day of September 2025. This is Quite Frankly. We're just jumping right into it tonight because we're going to be bringing on a guest in the first half we haven't spoken to in a while. I like having him on maybe once or twice a year to be able to parse up what has already happened and where things are going, because it's always very interesting analysis. We can bring people on for statistical analysis and environmental analysis and biological health analysis, whatever it is, nutrition and economics and whatever. Well, what about the stars? What about what the stars tell you? What about the sometimes unseen cycles that the earth and its people go through and all that stuff? And of course, what people pay attention to above to be able to plot their very earthly their earthly objectives. It's true. It's very true. That's what we were talking about the other night when synchronicity came up and deocculting Utah when Corey Daniel popped in. It's a tool. It's a tool that is used. And tonight we're going to have Jeff Harman jump on with us in about 10 minutes or so. And I'd like to just see what kind of a grade he gave this summer and where we are going into the fall and the winter. Are we going to have a respite from the craziness of the last month? Of course, over the weekend we had another one of those violent shootouts at a church, a Mormon church. Somebody ran a American flag draped truck into a building, set the whole thing on fire, shot a bunch of people, and you just start thinking, man, oh man, is it just all Gladio? Is it all Gladio or what? Like, what's the deal here? But there is the surface level, and then there's the rest of us asking the questions that usually don't get an answer, and that brings us right to the front doorstep of some other kind of shenanigan. And that's where we are tonight. So welcome to the show, and I hope that you enjoy yourself. So in the meantime, let's get into a couple of things up front. I wanted to see how you guys felt about some odd news. Now I know we have some yawny, sneezy people out there. It's just one of those things. And at nighttime, you start getting tired, you start yawning a little bit, you start sneezing, it's a little bit dusty in the house. I don't know. But right now we're going to be talking about yawning for a second. And about a young woman who yawned so strongly that she broke her neck. So be warned, a 36-year-old woman in the UK almost lost her life after yawning so forcefully one morning that she broke her damn neck and required emergency surgery. Haley Black had just woken up one morning to heat her daughter Amelia a bottle of formula when she saw the baby yawning and instinctively followed in her example. It was a casual thing, but the 36-year-old mother instantly felt an electric shock sensation shoot through her body, leaving her arm stuck in the air Black immediately realized that something was wrong, so she asked her husband, Ian, to call an ambulance. When she arrived at the hospital in Milton Keynes, she was in excruciating pain, but doctors struggled to understand what was going on because their scans didn't really show anything. It was only after taking scans of the woman's neck that they realized the C6 and C7 bones in her neck had shot forward into her spine. Damn, man. You know, it's stuff like this. It's stuff like this that really freaks me out. You can't plan for it. You just can't. I've heard about people like, triggering aneurysms or strokes or whatever because they looked over their shoulder backing up their car. You know, all of a sudden they felt a pop in their neck and it wasn't fascia. It was a vein. God. Oh, the veins. Oh. There's too many veins. There's too many things going on inside of us. It's not right. It's not right. There's too many things happening inside of us. I wish we were just a solid block of rubber. I really do. Why couldn't we be built like action figures? G.I. Joes. Give us a lifespan, whatever the hell it is. Can we just not have all these wiggly, squishy things going on inside of us? You know, it's just like, who thought of this? Anyway, moving on to the next. I think she's okay. What the hell does this cat have to do with it? It was crazy. Well, she lived. She's still struggling with the nerve damage, but she often gets pains down her arms, shooting up, but she can't yawn without panic anymore. I don't think any of you would be able to either. Take a little while before you be able to yawn again. Brazilian ant-infused cheese proves massive hit. Yummy. Taeda Silvania is a unique cheese made by a single producer in Sao Paulo's, what is that? Caçapava municipality, who thought mixing milk with native leafcutter ants would be a great idea. Well, guess what? I guess it was. Everybody likes it. They smear it on their toast. I guess those are ant butts. Brazilian indigenous people have consumed Ica ants, if that's how you say it, for centuries, maybe even longer. And writer Monteiro Lobato once dubbed the critters Brazilian caviar. So Almeida wasn't completely nuts to add them to her Taeda Silvania cheese, but what surprised that was how everybody loved it from its launch in 2021. She is the ant cheese master down there. If you're in Brazil, go and ask for the insect infused. Those are ant asses, the asses of an ant. So, but it's made from raw A2 milk from pasture-raised GIR cows and toasted. Ica's ant. The ants are toasted, so there's a little bit of a crunch to them. And so maybe I'll buy a wheel of this. No, but I will. You know what I did buy last night? I bought 4.5 pounds of tiramisu off of QVC. Never in my life would I have thought I'd be able to say that, or would have ever said that. So we did not watch a Hallmark film last night to rip it apart as we usually do as a family on a Sunday night because Anthony wasn't around. So we're like, all right, well, let's not waste a Hallmark film in case it was a really good one and he misses it. He and his girlfriend miss it because they have a lot of fun doing that with us, all of us doing it together. So instead, after we put Aurora to bed, I said, guys, just put on QVC. See if they're selling Christmas stuff already. My mom says, oh, they're selling Christmas stuff already. Because there's something relaxing about just watching QVC and watching everybody like go over the moon to try to sell this stuff. I shared a clip of it last night on the Quite Frankly Instagram. You can go check it out, of us ripping apart QVC. So we were roasting QVC as they're selling Christmas food last night. But things got a little bit more serious after the bread stuffing. It was like a turkey. It was a Thanksgiving turkey something. It was like pre-made roll. So there's a turkey, and inside of it, I guess they injected all this stuffing and cranberry sauce and whatever the hell else. That we had no interest in. But as soon as that left, they brought out the tiramisu and the limoncello and a toasted almond and some mixed berry kind of a thing. And then the tone in the room started getting a little bit more serious. And I'm like, oh shit. Well, I mean, like we can keep it in the freezer until Thanksgiving. And that doesn't, I love tiramisu. So what are we doing? Are we good? Finally started getting, okay, so am I doing this? And I ended up buying some tiramisu. It's a 4.5 pound block of it. And, I don't know if I'm going to you have to see how it tastes. I can't wait until Thanksgiving. What if it's bad? So maybe when it comes in, we just consume it now and see how it is. And if it's terrible, then good. We saved ourselves the embarrassment of waiting all that time for bad tiramisu. But if it's good, then we can just buy more. You don't think that you're going to ever get anything on QVC until you watch it for about 20 minutes. And then everybody starts grading on you. And you're like, oh, well, that does look actually pretty good. That does look good. You're right. The flavors of Italy. Oh, you got me. Okay, well, transport me. Let's go. Going to Italy together in the tiramisu. All right, well, I don't know what else to say. I have a couple more stories over here. Let's get to those. The first one up, did you know that there's a new glue that came out that can fuse your bones together in just a matter of minutes? That's a super glue. Bone O2. This is also on Oddity Central. It's a super glue, bone super glue that can fix fractures in a matter of minutes. The Chinese, of course, are doing it. They claim to have developed a revolutionary bone super glue. It's probably just Gorilla Glue, and they don't care about the toxicity. That can fix fractures which traditionally would take months to heal in a matter of minutes. Bone fractures are painful and very difficult to fix. Well, they have been successful in over 150 trial cases now. But can you really trust them? Can you really trust them? Seriously. So, that's it. The inventors of Bone O2 presented an experimental case of a patient with a wrist fracture who received an injection through a mere 3 centimeter incision. This was done non-invasively. If you really think about it, 3 centimeters, nothing, and it was healed in just 3 minutes. Surgery to repair the wrist would have required a metal plate and screws, the removal of which would have required a second surgery the following year. After a 3-month follow-up checkup, the patient's fracture had healed completely without complications. This was just one of at least 150 documented cases. So, there are amazing things coming our way. There really are. What can you say? Donald Trump has announced a 100% tariff on foreign-made movies, even though our biggest problem are the domestically made movies. President Donald Trump said in a Truth Social post on Monday, that's today, that he will be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside the United States. So immediately everybody started saying, wait, you're even Mel Gibson? I thought Mel Gibson was part of he was a diplomat, a USA, I don't know, like a Hollywood diplomat or something like that. If it's on location somewhere else, like Mel is doing for the Resurrection movie, what does that mean? I guess that's going to be 100%? Well, that's silly. Anyway, so that's what we're seeing here. The president initially threatened a 100% tariff on foreign-produced movies in May, arguing that other countries offer tax incentives that have drawn filmmakers abroad. In his post on Monday, he singled out California, saying the state has been particularly hit hard. The state, meanwhile, has proposed and put in effect many tax incentives, as have other American cities. Hollywood was completely caught off guard when Trump first previewed the tariff in May. On first blush, it was shocking and would represent a virtually complete halt of production. My whole thing is that what if it's not money based? What if it's really just you want to go out to a certain place and film on location for authenticity? Do you have to put in a special I don't know this, you got to sell me on this one. I don't know about that. Anyways, but like I said, between these are the easier things to talk about, but the harder things to talk about are trying to figure out what exactly is going on in our backyard over here in the United States. There's something new every week. There has been something new every week, or every 2 weeks at least. Some things are bigger than others. Still people are licking their wounds with the Charlie Kirk death, and of course and now it's the fighting amongst those who are towing one line or another in how they view not only that day on campus, also everything that has happened since then, and now assessing all the characters that are coming out of the woodwork that may have a big hand in redirecting or co-opting whatever people like Charlie Kirk were doing with TPUSA or organizations that are like it. In either case, I said, you know what, I wanted to bring on Jeff Harman because it had been a while, and not only that, when we spoke to him last, we were preparing for what he said was going to be a rocky summer into fall and leading us into 2026. That we have to be hopeful for what's coming our way, but there's a lot of transitions, and that's not going to be soft landings per se. But when we have those conversations, you still don't know where the hell it's all going to lead us and what we're going to be talking about 6 months down the line. Now we know a little bit more. So here we have Jeff Harman, a good friend of the show, has been at it for over about 50 years now. He has one hell of a resume, jeffharman.com, a very popular YouTube channel, does a lot of regular work over there. It's good to have you back, Jeff.
Hey, bud, thank you. Has it been that long? Wow.
I think it was the spring. I don't know if it was spring yet, but it's been months.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. So, yeah, how you been? Pretty good.
Yeah, everything's all right. Thankfully, good. Everything's okay. But like I said, I wanted to first get your take on this summer since it's all done, and at least from July. I mean, we started with the flood in Kerrville, Texas, like on Independence Day weekend, and from July all the way through August into September, it was one thing after another. And not a lot of it was very positive if you're just watching the mainstream media. Of course, there's so much good going on in humanity at large, but you know how the world is working, and you know how effective a tool the media is by those who rule the world and try to keep control. So give us a grade for the summer before we start talking about the fall.
Well, I would say this, that what happened was, when you look at this assassination, you look at the weather, you look at the political landscape and everything that's going on, it fits it to the T. We had this eclipse on the 7th of September. And right after that, the assassination, all this other crazy stuff. Plus, we had the disruption that we're seeing in the world. I mean, if you look at what's happening with the UN right now, Comey's indicted. Believe me, they're coming after a lot more people. This is just the beginning. And it's going to get nuts. And the weather is really affected by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. See, those are going to come to a conjunction this February. So don't be surprised if we see things get even a little more crazy on the weather front, the flooding, things like that. The biggest one that I mentioned this last time on the show, is Uranus. See, Uranus takes about 84 to 86 years to go around the solar system. Well, what's it doing right now? It's retrograding back over the Pleiades. And for anybody who's not familiar, the Pleiades is a star cluster in the sidereal sign of Taurus. And every time this happens, just to give you a little idea, what happened last time was World War II. If you roll it back another 84, 86 years, you had the Civil War. If you go back another 84, 86 years before that, Revolutionary War. And if you keep leapfrogging back, you'll find there was always tumultuous changes in the world: rebellion, change, and chaos. Uranus is like throwing a change grenade in the room, but boom, everything just gets volatile. It gets crazy. But in the end, it actually brings alignment and new directions. Uranus is one of the craziest planets when you look at it. It's the two crescents of the moon bent outwards. If you look at the glyph with the cross in the middle over the sun, plain English, it always brings disruption. If you look at Uranus in an astronomical sense, it's actually orbiting 180 degrees on its size. There's not a single scientist drawing breath that can tell us why. It's not gravity. You look at the angularity of all these planets, and even if you're a flat earther, these still show up that way. So this is a very interesting situation, because every time it does, it grenades society into change. And disruption is the other thing too. And I think we're going to see a lot more than just the stuff we're hearing on the news. I think some very deep stuff is going on over with this whole Ukrainian-Russian situation. I mean, when you look at the EU, what's happening with that, Australia, New Zealand, the whole global situation's really turning around right now in some very chaotic ways. And I think when it's all done, it's like shaking up a barrel of monkeys and bam, you smash them on the table and everything goes into chaos and rolls, right? And where everything ends up, that's where you start. And that's kind of the effect of Uranus going over the Pleiades. In fact, it's actually going to hit the fixed star Alcyon right at the end of October this month. In fact, I just did a YouTube video on that on my YouTube channel, and I talked about the forecast for October. And, you know, you got to stay centered in all of this or we lose our minds, right? And I have to tell you, you know, I look in readings with people. I'm always looking at where do these planets that I just spoke about, Saturn and Neptune and Uranus, where are they lining up in people's charts? The other thing we got going on is Pluto is going direct. In fact, I wrote that down. Pluto, I think, jumps direct right here on October 3rd, which is just this next week. Plain English, Pluto is always the transformer. Pluto's like a magnifying glass. It's like watching Spinal Tap. It doesn't go to 10, it goes to 15, right? So it just amplifies whatever it's with. It's exceedingly intense. And Pluto is making a trine right now, or just did, to Uranus, which is now going into the Pleiades. So this is powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. This is a time of really dynamic and powerful change in the world. We are going to see the world be rearranged here as we get into next year, and it's actually starting right now.
I was going to ask you if there was any direct, because we were doing these breakdowns and taking calls all, you know, with it over the course of the last couple of weeks since the assassination, and I said that you can't really get too far away from making JFK comparisons to this entire thing. Because the generational impacts, I think, were the same. You just on the basis of all of the exceedingly bizarre official stories that are being pushed by authoritative or people who pretend to be authorities. They're standing by some really bizarre official stories, which really there's so many tie-ins to the figure that was taken out.
Yeah.
And then where things go afterwards and trying to see who hijacks the legacy, what comes next and all that stuff. Had you done any charts on this? Are there any direct links that you had done since a few weeks ago with the assassination?
Yeah. And what's interesting is I looked up the meaning in the medieval Egyptian astrology of this eclipse that happened in that, they call them decanates. They're each 10 degrees. And it said a great person could be killed. And that's what happened. Whether you like Charlie Kirk or you dislike Charlie Kirk, he has had an immense impact on society. You know, if you look back, I don't care where you go, right? You can start with Jesus. You can start with MLK. You can start with JFK, RFK, Malcolm X, and also John Lennon, right? And now we got Charlie Kirk. These, if you just kind of page back through time and you look at who are the people that made massive impacts on the world, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, doesn't matter. They had huge impacts and they changed the world. Well, it's interesting, this eclipse, you know, eclipses don't just happen in the sky. The Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and the Egyptians, they paid a lot of attention to eclipses. The cuneiform tablets actually talks about them. This is thousands of years ago when writing was just coming back in after we went around the galactic center, probably about 8,000 or 9,000 years earlier. So long story short, they talked about the impact of eclipses. They always have a karmic impact on the world. And, you know, I always say the astrology is not us. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And we all have a front row seat right now to this massive change. And it's really powerful right now. I got to say that. And, you know, I have to say, every time I went back, and people say to me, yeah, but, you know, Uranus wasn't discovered before, you know, the Civil War. It only was discovered right in the 20th century. And I said, so what? That doesn't mean it wasn't there, right? That's like if the tree falls in the wood, there was no sound if no one's there to hear it. Well, yeah, there was. The tree fell, right? So same thing with Uranus. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are always referred to in astrology as the transcendentals, meaning they're outside of the inner 7 planets. But do they have an effect? You bet they do. And if you go back through history and you color them in, even though they weren't discovered, and you look at the cycles, absolutely profound. The Roman Empire was destroyed on a 250-year cycle of a Pluto return. And the United States just went through that. We just had a Pluto return for the very first time in the United States. Exceedingly powerful. Look what's happened. They bankrupted the place. They flooded it. And they've created total chaos in the media and everything that we see, right? So, but now they just want to get on with their lives and destroy the world the rest of the way, you know? So it's crazy. It's a really, really crazy scenario when you look at it. And it's always been that way. So now I think we're in a contraction phase where we're moving the other way. I actually think when this is all said and done, even though AI is dangerous as hell. I mean, when you think about AI, in fact, I've had several clients who are involved in military or secret stuff that they can't talk too much about. And every one of them are sawing their fingernails off because they're worried. They said, you know, this AI is great and we're glad that, you know, the government's going into it. But they're all telling me the problem is everything's going to be data-based. So right now it's cool. You know, you keep the Constitution, the Bill of Rights and everything. It's all good. But talk to me in 20 years from now, especially the next Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And people go, what does that mean? Well, the last one brought us COVID, right? Before that, Nixon took us off the gold standard. If you keep leapfrogging back, you'll find either major wars or tumultuous changes or events in society. COVID was exactly when the Saturn-Pluto conjunction joined. We got another one coming up here in right around 235, I think it is, or something like that. And I mentioned it on my podcast. Yeah, it's actually the Saturn-Pluto conjunctions in 254. I said it wrong. 2054. We've got a Saturn-Pluto opposition in 2035.
Jeez.
Now, just to give you an idea,
these ridiculous in these years.
Yeah.
I even just hearing the year. Oh my gosh, 2050. My parents are going to be 100 years old.
I will be too. Oh. But anyhow, the bottom line is, let the cat out of the bag there. Huh? So the Saturn-Pluto opposition happened in 2001. That was 9/11. And we got that coming again right in 2035. 2028, which is just 3 short years away, actually a little less than that, we have the next Saturn-Pluto square. You might say, well, what happened on that? Well, the last one was the banks crash in 2008 and 2009. Remember the housing implosion? So these never stop until the fat or skinny lady sings. And I can tell you, these are powerful and they just keep marching forward, but they're all never the same. The danger we run with AI is right now, if we have good people, at least policing it, I'm worried more in these future dates here. If you get somebody despotic, like our New One World Order friends who say, hey, you know, we can control this whole society, that's where it gets dangerous. And it's not now. It's like a Terminator movie. You know, if it gets out of hand, if it spins out of control, that's when it gets dangerous.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, because and then we'll get back into where we're going. You mentioned that Uranus is 1781, the late 18th century, and Neptune, I know that was mid 19th, and then right. You know, Pluto
when they were discovered, right?
Right, when they were discovered, and then Pluto is like 19, probably around the time that the banks did crash. But you know,
that's right around the 20s, I think it was. I could look it up.
But that makes me wonder, when you have those very 3 important celestial bodies that you know, within the last 150 to 200 years, I mean, there's had to be a lot. It's been a very busy century, especially with Pluto being. It's only about 100 years that we knew that it's been around. I mean, 20. Yeah, I'm seeing. Right. Hold on. It's February 18th, 1930. It was discovered. So you think 2030 is going to be 100 years that we knew of Pluto's presence, but like you said, it's always been there. So it's been a pretty that must have been a pretty heavy lifting century to go back in time for thousands of years and plugging in all of these blank spots, and now finally having the culprit.
Yeah. And I mean, if you take Tartaria out, which I think there's a lot of secret timelines that have been going on that we're not told about, I don't believe the history at all. And you look in Tartaria and other things and ufology, there's definitely a lot of things they've been telling us that aren't true, right? And you see that the education systems have really been taken over right about that time, about World War I. It was Woodrow Wilson that rubber stamped the Federal Reserve Act. And ever since that point, the birth certificates were not required prior to that. And now your birth certificate is actually the collateral the bankers are using. You think we own the shirt we got on or the chair we're sitting in? You don't. George Carlin was right. Forget the politicians. You have owners. They own everything. And it's the bankers. If you look at what are we, $37 trillion in debt right now? And, just to put your mind around this, the enormity of that, it's mind boggling. I actually did a math experiment. Okay. So if you take a second, right, and you multiply that times 40 years old, you're just a little over 1 billion seconds old. So it kind of gives you an idea of the quantity of 1 billion, right? Which, Washington throws around like it's, waste paper baskets. 1 trillion. I couldn't believe it. I calculated 1 trillion seconds. It is 11,700 something odd years. I actually did it like 4 times. I go, wait a minute, is this right? 11,700 something. That's what 1 trillion seconds is. Now, throw that into a budget of, and that's just the United States. And they say the entire Western world could be 100 plus, maybe even 150 trillion in debt, let alone the black ops and everything else that nobody talks about, right? So this is deep, deep stuff. Who's printing this money? Who's got this kind of collateral? Nobody. It's all fiat currency. And this is a very interesting transitional time, which relates to the Uranus and finances and gold and silver, right? Look at gold and silver shooting to the moon.
I was just going to bring this up.
This is why. Mm-hmm. See, the implosions of the system. There's a great book. I got that thing laying around here somewhere. I just read it. It's called The Tower of Babel. A client of mine turned me onto it. I got a landing here someplace. I don't know where that is. But anyways, what a great book. Yeah, I can't find it somewhere. But you can look it up on the internet. The Tower of Babel. Now, not to be construed with the Tower of Babel. Remember Tower of Babel? God blew it up, confused all the languages and everything. This is the Tower of Basel. Where? Basel, Switzerland. And this is about these central bankers who are behind the scenes. Nobody knows who they are. But you have the same bankers sitting at the table whose countries are blowing each other up, borrowing money. And they're doling out the money this way and that way. And they all go home and fund their war machines. Do the bankers care? Why would they? It's like Rothschild said. He said, I make more in one day of war than I do in a year of peace. So it's the business of war. Go watch the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage sometime. What a good movie. That was about the Soviet Union being broken up. It's a true story, actually. And all this weaponry was being sold off and, everybody blowing each other up. So it's kind of creepy when you think about it. Well, this whole fiat currency-based system, which is what we've really been on, and it really kicked in since World War I forward. That's when the bankers really, and that's when this Tower of Basel, it's really not the tower. It's called the Bank of International Settlements. That's what he's talking about. So the Bank of International Settlements are the guys that are woven with all the Federal Reserve and God only knows who else. I mean, it's very complex. When you look at international finances, this is where the real quarters of power lie. And I really have to say, when you look at how this is all structured, there's another book I mentioned. You can get this for free on the internet. It's called The Great Taking. You can Google this. This is by David Webb. And it's a free book. He's actually was a hedge fund guy who used to work with George Soros in New York, right? And the reason he wrote this book is he wanted to alert everyone that, the chair you're sitting in, you really don't own it. The bankers do. Your birth certificate is a straw man collateralization for the entire net worth of a country. All the parks are mortgaged, you name it, everything, the resources. And what's interesting, and I'll get hate mail for this, but Orange Man, who we're all trained to hate, right? If he doesn't get the tariffs approved by the Supreme Court, this ruling right now, be very afraid, because this is an attempt, I believe, to break away from the Federal Reserve bankers. If the country reignites, not only with tariffs, but all the resources that are being released, in another couple of years, the United States will be back to wealthy again. And, I was talking to a really knowledgeable guy yesterday about this, how in the EU, before it was the EU, it was all these sovereign countries. They all had their own currencies, right? Well, I think this was like 30, 40 years ago, whenever the EU currency came in. It was a long time ago. Forget the date. But what they did is these bankers said, hey, don't worry about a thing. We know you're broke. We'll buy up your all your debt, right? So they did. And they gave them the euro. Well, guess what? The prices of everything doubled. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
And what happened is they gave them the euro, which was worth half the value of their own currency. Everything inflated to the moon. And now they own them because they paid off their debt. You see, so when you really look at this, the Bank of International Settlements, according to most sources, was created when all the Habsburgs, and that's what really, a lot of historians believe that that's what caused World War I. And I think they're right. It destroyed that empire and repositioned all the wealth. That's when the Bank of International Settlements and all their buddies got involved. They're totally immune to political, any auditing, or any type of review. You can't even get a reporter near this place. So it's where the quarters of power are. And this is interesting because the astrology right now shows that this is the time things get disrupted and changed.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this right now, Jeff, because of course this morning when I wake up and I see that gold is at nearly 4,000 and silver at
buy
50.
Gold, buy silver, because it's going to keep right on going.
And if
it was where it should be $40,000 an ounce, maybe more.
That's what I hear. Well, at least $4,000 an ounce. That's what I hear for silver. I'm talking. Maybe gold is $40,000 an ounce, but I'm looking at this.
If it was valued correctly, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at this incredible post from GLP. I want to put onto the record a little bit later on, as far as what some people are really watching over the time frame of 30, then 30 to 90 days. But this could be pretty significant. And I'll tell you, I wanted to see what you thought about this, because the financial signals, of course, that could be a lot of things, but one of the more obvious things, unfortunately, could be that there's a war coming. And you had mentioned it before.
They want a war. They want a war.
You know what? And I thought that electing Trump, and listen, there has been no major exchanges. We were all held our breath, and we're praying that the Iran thing, many of us may or would not have done what happened out there in Iran, but it did not lead to anything far more catastrophic than that we can measure. But when it comes to Russia, that's what we were all thinking about. And how is this going to be wrapped up? And we're still with the war in the East. Actually, we're getting reports today in the last couple of days that there is authorizations being given for missile strikes deeper into Russia now, and that people like me wanted to see Zelensky hung out to dry and just be cut off from all of his playthings, but he's getting his belly scratched right now, and we're kind of
dangerous stuff.
Dangerous stuff. It is.
The owners want war. And, I would be really remiss to believe everything we're told on the Mind Control News. And the reports I've actually heard, they're re-engineering weapons and refiring them back at themselves to blame the Russians. Now, I'll get heat for that. But that's what the report I've heard a couple of different ways. I actually cast one chart on it, and there may be some truth to it. So clearly, they're priming the pump. This is how, when you go back in history, there's strong evidence that they knew damn well that Pearl Harbor was going to happen. And some say there's even more conspiracy theories. I don't think they're conspiracies. It's when you look at what happens, these bankers prime the pump, and they don't have to personally do it. All you got to do is hand out the money. You'll find somebody to do it. So, and there's so much black ops stuff, like Charlie Kirk, they ain't never going to figure out how that really happened. And there's a myriad of conspiracy theories. I don't want to get into it. I know one thing, and it's going to bring him back, right? He's gone. So, and a lot of people are even speculating on that. I believe a lot of this information is purposely put out just to throw us off. And they do it on purposely. But I can tell you, I was asked a question when Charlie Kirk was killed. And by the way, I looked at Charlie Kirk's chart. I rectified his birth time. I couldn't believe it. That eclipse point had the sun move exactly on it. And if my birth time is right, it lined up with Charlie Kirk's point of death in Egyptian astrology. So accurate, it was creepy. And see, there's actually what they call the lot of death. It's juxtaposition from the position of the sun and the moon before you were born. See, all of us were either born before a new moon or after a full moon, because you can only be in those two phases. It's either a new moon or a full moon. So we're all born at points in between. Well, whatever that is, there's something called the lot or part of fortune, and there's a part of spirit opposite that. And what you do is you take the eighth from that. And if you got hard aspects and solar arcs, which Charlie Kirk had it exact, I couldn't believe it. And I've seen this in a lot of charts. I'd say 85 to 90% of the charts that I see, the lot of death is very accurate. Some aren't. And that's interesting because some people will pass away, from old age, or they're just spiritual souls that may have transcended certain karmas. So it's really interesting stuff. But Charlie Kirk clearly had the symbolism in that chart. Anyways, back to why I brought this up is because I think there's so many trails that they're never going to figure out what really happened.
Well, Jeff,
and they do this purposely. They know how to dust the trails, these Black Ops guys, better than the Lone Ranger and Tonto could ever figure out. So yeah, it's just the way it is.
But that's what I'm wondering about, the the so-called Black Ops guys. One thing that many are saying is that there are many aspects of this that are just not adding up. And even if there is a certain level of involvement in this, perhaps, the shooter to get a shot off, perhaps, maybe you just need somebody visibly out there motivated to pull a trigger, but that's not where the kill shot came from, or that's not who's holding the strings behind it all. Perhaps it's all shadow puppetry and there is real human resources being expended there, both the patsy and their motivations, their personal motivations that could be taken advantage of by people who have much more, bigger, either occulted motivations, geopolitical motivations, one way or another. Yeah. Those things that you found in a chart for someone like Charlie Kirk, that's interesting to me, because when we talk about a death that is of such high profile and mysterious nature, I tend to believe that there's probably a lot of people who are reading through this and, using it as data to plot their missions.
Well, and you got to remember too, mind control is live and well. And the only thing I'll say is I've never seen anyone as verklempt as this guy when he got charged. I mean, he's like barely got a pulse. There's some really weird stuff going on. And when you look back in time, you look at all these things that went on with RFK, JFK, MLK, John Lennon, it's very interesting how these situations were tracked. And there was a lot of lore around that this wasn't just went down the way they wanted to go down. Charlie Kirk would have been too powerful of a force to I think let go on the agendas. And when you look at, I don't want to get into the current political scenes here, which is going on with talk shows, but I can tell you, if Orange Man wasn't available, and you know who I'm talking about, right? Mr. T, Trump, right? You wouldn't have at least 3 major talk shows. I don't know what they talk about. Johnny Carson talked about this, who I absolutely loved. Johnny Carson said, why don't you, ever talk about politics or anything else? He says, because I'm not going to use The Tonight Show, which had more viewers than all of the talk shows put together, including CNN, MSNBC, and ABC right now. I mean, he had millions of people watching him by the time he had retired. And he said, I'm not going to use The Tonight Show for a forum or a platform for propaganda. He didn't use the word propaganda, but he said as a forum. And it's so true. And when you look at the money these networks are pouring into losing ventures, something's going on here besides just the news and talk shows and comedy. They're definitely, George said it right. It's a big club. They beat us over the head every day telling us what to believe, and we ain't in it. And that is a very accurate statement. And I wish it weren't, but it is. And that's why in my last podcast, and when I do readings with people, I always talk about this. You got to stay centered. There's one thing in the universe that's the most powerful thing, and that is your consciousness, your center point. Because if you keep watching the news, you feel like a Q-tip in a mud puddle after you get done watching half this stuff that's coming at us all day long, including on the social media. So if we don't find some way to keep our conscious center, and they say in reincarnation in Vedic astrology, I love this because that's what attracted me to studying the depths of Nadi and Vedic astrology and ancient traditional astrology, is it's not just astrology. It's the journey of the soul in time and space. We're literally, when you look at the Earth, and many quantum physicists talk about this, time, it actually is an illusion. Now, it's definitely real. I mean, call me on the first of the month, drop a brick on your foot. I can guarantee you time is real. I know I just hurt my foot last week and it hurts. And I got comfrey root on it right now, healing it up. And I can tell you that, when you exit this body, which is something Krishnamurti always spoke about. I don't know if you know who he was. I loved Krishnamurti. I was just up at his place in Ojai, California, about 2 weeks ago, or a little over that. And he always talked about consciousness. And this is what the great avatars always spoke about. Your center point, your awareness, your perception of reality. And one thing that's an inevitability, I sound like Agent Smith here, but we will all die. We will all exit this meat suit called our bodies, right? And no one thinks about that. We always live like there's never going to be an end to it all. Well, all of us will exit this physical plane, and your consciousness is the only thing you take with you. I know. I have friends who passed away. All the money's still there. The attorneys are fighting over it. Who gets what, right? Nobody gets anything themselves other than themselves. And that's why when you look at this world and the insanity, this is nothing new. If you go back through time, I mean, look at Stalin and Hitler and Mao, and if you keep going back, Genghis Khan, I mean, just keep going. I mean, history in a lot of ways is a lie, but it also does have a lot of truths in terms of the slaughters and the wars that have been precipitated through millennia, or at least the last couple thousand years, I'll say that. And, what do you get out of all this? Well, the world is crazy. I always say I love the human race. It's the people that drive me nuts, right? So it's literally us in this chaotic, creational, and also very beautiful planet. And when we stop reacting to it all and just be experiencers, not that you shouldn't participate in whatever you believe in and etc., but it's really a place where you can lose your marbles and you can go insane if you don't try and pull yourself out of the white noise of all the stuff coming at us all the time. And that's a real job. And that's what, again, many of the religions and spiritual teachers, et cetera, all focused on. And they actually weren't wrong, as long as you keep the dogma out of it, right?
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I love having you on a few months to try to help digest what has happened and look forward to what may be right around the corner. And so essentially, before we get into where people can find you and how everything else is shaping up in Jeff Harman's world, you're saying that we are not out of the woods yet, going not only into the holiday season, but into February of next year. Do you see any kind of a valley to all these peaks, or what's going on?
Well, I mean, Uranus is going to hit Alcyon right at the end of October. After that, we do get a little bit of a lull, but Saturn and Neptune come together in February. I think it's right around the 20th of February. I actually did some calculations on this, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, well, when was the last time that Saturn and Neptune joined in the very first, what they call bound, the Egyptians called them bounds, in the tropical zodiac of Aries? And I thought, well, maybe it was, 3,000 years too. No, I went back. It hasn't happened for nearly somewhere close to 24,000 years. And I went, wow. And I even ran that through Chat GTP. I said, okay, well, let's use Chat GTP here because sometimes it does it really quick, right? So, and I've been playing around a lot with that stuff, and it said the same thing. So I said, well, I'm probably right because it's very time consuming to do this stuff. You got to sit there and run charts back. And I actually have models in astrology programs that you can tell it to look for a certain condition. And that's what it came up with. And so did ChatGTP. So you say, well, what does this mean? Well, Saturn is our perception of reality and reality structures. In fact, in Vedic astrology, Saturn in each one of us represents the karmic sheath or layer of the aura that surrounds us. And that's a lot to do with the entrapment of the reincarnational figure eight loop that we all tend to get trapped into. And what's interesting is Neptune is like a portal, if you will, out to the upper dimensions and heavens. Neptune, if you look at its glyph, is the crescent of the moon bent upwards over the cross. You just look it up on any astrology program or online, and you'll see it's the psychic portal to the lower conscious mind, which is not us. The lower conscious mind is really very myopic. They actually call it an attenuator, meaning that when we're born, spanked on the rear end in the delivery room, this mark we all have right here beneath our nose and our upper lip, they say is one element called the mark of silence. And it's believed to represent the blockage from the lower conscious mind that forms when we're born to the upper layers of the soul. And there's some really interesting texts that very explicitly lay this stuff out. And it has a lot to do with, they say the more a soul incarnates, the more conscious awareness it gets. And you could say what many of the religions speak about, consciousness, connection to the spirit, the sheath of karma, and outside of that, which is the upper two divine layers of the soul, which don't think like we do. And it's a very dangerous thing not to check your lower consciousness. To check, I just was talking to a wonderful person this morning who's a certified hypnotherapist, and I talked to psychiatrists and psychologists a lot, and it's fascinating stuff, how they view, and a lot of them can't express this in their careers because they've got their certifications and their licenses that they don't want to have expire or taken away. I've actually had some psychologists actually get their license taken away by the board because they were doing certain things with clearing and spirits, and you can't do that, right? So it's very regulated. That's why I kind of enjoy being outside of that world of regulation.
I would imagine.
But yeah, but why I'm bringing that up is because it really relates to this Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's going to happen this February. Well, that's reality dissolving, the reality we once knew. And see, everybody says, well, Saturn and Neptune come together every 38 years. Well, they're right. They do. Just like Jupiter and Saturn come together approximately every 20 years, but they don't do it the same way. And there's never the same configurations. And if you subscribe to the fact that our solar system is going around a 26,000 year cycle, they say it's 25,900 years or 25,007. No one really knows, but just short of 26,000 years. You think about the other fixed star groups that are also constantly moving. You can never get time to happen the same way twice. It's an infinite loop of creation. In fact, the Vedas say every approximately 4 billion years, the universes might be destroyed, or it goes into total chaos and it's recreated. And we get many of the scientists say, well, the Earth is about 4 billion years old. I thought that's kind of interesting because, I don't know. It says this in the Vedas. And there might be a lot more truth to this than we know. And sometimes it may be a big bang. Other times it may be a big contraction that ends up in a big, no one knows. But one thing's for sure, it's the physical realms. And they claim there could be 49 parallel universes. Many people know this as the multiverses, right? And 49 subdimensions. And there's a lot of theories behind this stuff that, time is really on this planet very tied to the astronomy. If you were to change the speed of sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight, I think you changed genetics. I think you changed consciousness. They actually said the moon used to shine all the time in some of the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian legends. And that only happens, you only have waxing, waning moon phases because of the orbital ecliptical planes of the sun and the moon and the earth. And if you alter that, which it appears to have happened. There's actually an ancient Sumerian legend that talks about there used to be a planet in between Jupiter and Mars. We know it today as the asteroid belt. The scientists go, oh, that's not true. Well, they say that actually rearranged the entire solar system, and there may be a lot more truth to that than we know. And when you think about time, we're only timing things from this genetic viewpoint in these very shut down conscious minds. And the more I think we expand in our consciousness, the more we realize nobody gets out of here in these bodies.
Well,
we get out, I think, in consciousness, but we never leave in these genetic meat suits.
Yeah. Well, you know what? At least with all the unpredictability and the 26,000 year cycles, we can zero in a little bit more on February. And if there is, that's a little bit more bite size for everybody. If there's anything, if there's anything we can take away from this
tonight,
how
many 26,000 year cycles you could put into 4 billion years.
Oh, I mean, this is why it's
incomprehensible.
It's interesting. It really is an interesting thing, and of course, mind blowing to think that the math, if that is true, because there are a lot of you want to talk about people who are on different pages of how old everything is, the Earth, the universe at large, all that stuff. It's just time, infinite time. It's nuts to even consider. But let everybody know where to find you, Jeff. And at the very least, you never know what happens. Sometimes we need you to come back to do a little bit of a checkup, a progress report when things get rocky, or when things get good. That'd be nice there too. But at the very least, I think
they'll get good again. I really do.
Well, like I said, no matter what, I'd love to have you back on in February to kind of get a lay of the land and kind of to get the temperature of the waters there. But where can people find you in the meantime?
Oh, the easiest way is jeff@jeffharman.com. It's in the last name's Harman, not O-N, jeff@jeffharman.com. And then you can check out my YouTube channel at Jeff Harman Astrologer. So it's on that. I usually do things, I try and do them every Wednesday and Sunday. We just do a kind of a live update. But yeah, I've been talking a lot about this stuff, and I got to tell you, it's a very great time of change right now. And you're hearing right now that there's all kinds of rumblings of war. They want to get war going, and I don't think they actually will. I don't think we're going to ever see a World War III scenario like 1 and 2 were. We might be in one already, and I think we might have been in it for a while. It's a psyops operation, actually, and we'll see where this all ends up.
Yes, we will.
They'd like to get an iron war going, but I don't know that that's going to happen. It may look like it, but I think it'll be stopped.
Well, let's pray for that, and I can't wait to have you back. JeffHarman.com. He's the good. Thank you for making time for us tonight. Please send Camille my best, and it's great to have you on again, Jeff.
All right. Well, good to see you, buddy. Thank you.
Great to have you on. Okay, JeffHarman.com, and his YouTube is linked in the description of the episode, so you can just go click through on that if you're watching on YouTube, and you'll be able to put your notifications on with his show. So anytime he goes live, boom, you'll be right there. Now, I wanted to read a little bit of this post because I know we have some financial people out there who, even if you're not making active investments in things, you still know what financial fluctuations mean for coming events. And I think this is pretty interesting. And it came from a pretty regular OP on GLP, and I'll read that right after the break here. When we come back, we'll take some of your calls. We'll read your super chats. Oh, I got something else. And this is going to be something that I'm going to lead. We're going to build this up for not only this week, but also next week. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the next basket that we're giving away. It's absolutely insane. It's insane. This was the large cozy basket that we did not put out at the Jamboree. But here's what they got in it. And I'll tell you what I added to it. Organic cotton sofa blanket made in Portugal. Wild protein chips, chicken and waffle. Tea Forte Herbal Tea Triangles, Cozy Read. There's 2 books in there. There's A Good Scent from a Strange Mountain. And then I also put in a book that we were able to give away. It was a gift from a friend out there. You've made a good living. Now make life good. There's, what's this? What's the Hygie Cozy Conversation Cards? Hygie? It's a conversation game if you guys don't know how to talk to people. Cultivate, Elevate Chai Tea. There's Sweet Dreams Cloud Socks. You see that? And I stuffed the socks into a Quite Frankly mug and also put in a bag of Quite Frankly Elevation Blend Coffee and also put in a bag of Verso Cell Being. I'm also dropping a whole bunch of bags of Keto Brain samples and a Keto Brain mug. So you're going to have 2 mugs in there. Listen, before I put all the added stuff into there, it was valued at around $110. I'm telling you right now, there's over $200 worth of stuff in there. And now mugs and Quite Frankly coffees and all types of stuff. All you got to do is put in a super chat from now until the end of next week. And that's going to be our grand prize at the end of next week. I'll do little nightly giveaways, but damn, how about that? Some of you guys who put in for the silver, I'm still going to be giving silver away. I'm still going to be giving it away from Quite Frankly .gold. Tony Arterburn was actually supposed to come on tonight. It's like, Tony, $4,000 gold, $50 silver. I mean, how many of you out there have won silver from this show? You've already gone up at least $15 for that ounce. How about, and what'd you throw in? $5 super chat? You know, you got to be in it to win it. Super chat on YouTube. I'll be collecting the YouTube, the Rumble, Quite Frankly superchat.com, and the gold pills. I'll be collecting those all throughout this week and next. This is an awesome basket. It'll get you ready for the fall going into the winter. All right, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
All right, let's talk health essentials because apparently I need a whole science lab to function. So I need MCT oil for metabolism boost, check. Lion's mane for brain health, check. Elfin JPC for memory and focus, check. L-theanine for stress, check. And a superfood creamer because I need my coffee super creamy. Or I can just purchase myself some Keto Brainz.
Welcome to intermission.
Intermission.
Back to school, back to school, back to school. Well, here goes nothing.
All right. All right. So listen, everybody. I got this post here I want to read to you. Got a couple of super chats as well. We'll do this. Let me read it. Stostoop says, great guest tonight, as is the usual with the greatest independent media that we know, is Quite Frankly. Thank you, Frank. Well, thank you, Christos. So good. You guys out there are so nice. Thank you. Jay Britt says, great kickoff of the week. Thanks, Frank. Road Trip says, ask Jeff about 3i Atlas. Damn it. Shit. Jeff, are you still out there? What about Atlas? I was going to get, I had Ryan Gable ready to go tonight too. But I wanted him on in the second half, and the second half was not going to be feasible for him because he had to do a broadcast. And of course, he's on Japanese time. So he's about 11 hours ahead of us. So we'll get him on here soon because I want to ask him about things like what his take on media-based synchronicity and predictive programming is. You know, last time we got together, there were quite a few calls, and you know, that's when a lot of the posts about the Snake Eyes movie with Nicolas Cage were going viral. And there's further analysis of that going on, but I just wanted to kind of expand that a little bit. Our friend Lindsay Sharman, I got to get her to call in on that night too. She had a really good take on how seemingly impossible predictive programming overlap. You say if it's predictive, what did it really predict the other thing, or was it just chance? Well, what if those chances of overlap are 1 in trillions? With all the mini details that go out there, 1 in trillions. You know, what does that mean? Is there any other aspect of human activity that could account for things like that without it being meticulously and, I don't know, incomprehensibly planned? It doesn't make sense for some of these things to be planned, but at the same time, the spookiness of the overlap is there, and it defies all odds and defies all reason. So I want to know. I want to know about stuff like that. What is there any kind of Twin Peaks level explanation for why we find ourselves like doing this? Now, the Simpsons stuff is something different. The Simpsons stuff, the Twin Towers, that's kind of like, that's something different, you know, when you're talking about, but anyhow, Gina Harris says, Frank, I gotta win this cozy basket, if only for the Quite Frankly mug. Also, is it just me, or is Jeff Harman's voice reminiscent of Casey Kasem's? Love ya, Gina from South Carolina. You know, let me see. I think Jeff's voice is a little lower. I think it's a little bit deeper. Let's see. Casey Kasem. Casey Kasem's voice. Let's see.
The countdown will begin this Sunday afternoon at 1, right here on the radio station you grew up with, Music Radio 138. Oh, fuck. What the hell's going on here? Oh, geez, well, isn't it the last hour? We got another hour to do? Geez, I thought we were almost finished. Good golly, Miss Molly. Boy, this is fucking ponderous, man. Ponderous. Fuck.
This is Casey Kasem's famous on-air meltdown. Or I don't know if it was just if it was on air or if it was just recording outtakes. This is Casey Kasem. No, Jeff, he has a little bit, his delivery, I can see where you're coming from, Gina, but his voice is deeper, richer.
Fucking ponderous. Hi, this is Casey Kasem. American Top 40 has moved to a new time. I hope you'll join me this Saturday morning and every Saturday morning at 2. Now, we're up to our long-distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's start again. From coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. See, when you come out of those up-tempo goddamn numbers, man, it's impossible to make those transitions, and then you got to go into somebody dying. You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for, but goddamn it, if we can't come out of a slow record, I don't understand it. Is Don on the phone? Okay, I want a goddamn concerted effort to come out of a record that isn't a fucking up-tempo record every time I do a goddamn death dedication. Now, make it, and I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week. This is last goddamn time. I want somebody to use his fucking brain to not come out of a goddamn record that is, that's up-tempo, and I got to talk about a fucking dog dying.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I love mismatched music to dedications. It happens naturally, but I think it's hilarious. We would joke about it too whenever we would listen to Delilah. Maybe she jokes about it as well. I got to get her on the show. Well, there you go. There's Casey Kasem for you having a candid moment. A candid moment for all. Okay, but it does sound like Jeff. It sounds like Jeff's delivery, but not his pitch, not his tone. Okay, let's see here. Grimbold72 says, I love Jeff, love you, Frank. Can't wait to listen to this one later. Great show as of late. Keep up the amazing work. Support this guy. I appreciate you, man. I really do. Grandma Grateful says, I'm in it to win it. I just figured how to send more than $1. Wow. Good for you. It's good to have you aboard. Okay, so listen to this, and then you guys call in. I'm going to leave the lines open. We're going to have John Ward calling in around 8:40 or so. We're going to close out the show with him. So we got about a half hour that we can spend together. I got some creepy stuff for you, too. So this is from Pacific Northwest guy, 1979. He's a frequent poster on godlikeproductions.com. And he said this morning, gold and silver and the path to shutdown. We are in deep shit right now. Here's my current evaluation as of 7 a.m., September 29th, 2025. The signal from the metals. Gold is at $38.50. This is above the confidence erosion line. Investors don't leave dollars for gold at these levels unless they're losing faith in the U.S. financial system. Silver is near $47. This has crossed the liquidity stress threshold of $45. Silver at these levels is not just industrial demand. It's a red flag that funding markets are under stress. When gold and silver rise together, it's not a normal hedge. It means both confidence, gold, and liquidity, silver, are in trouble at the same time. Number 2, time frames that we're watching. The next 30 days, that is throughout October 2025, critical ignition window. If a government shutdown overlaps with weak treasury auctions or a hot inflation print, confidence could crack quickly. Risk of a disorderly move in the dollar is now, approximately 50% in October. Now, with over the course of the next 30 to 90 days, that's into November and December of this year, Fed meets December 9th or 10th. If they ease policy while inflation is still high, the market will read that as currency debasement. If silver pushes past $48 to $49 toward $50, the panic line is in sight. Crash risk rises to 60% by the year end. That's what they're saying. And then, of course, 90 to 180 days. Gold at $4,000 and silver at $50 could confirm a systemic break. At that point, treasury auctions become monetization events, printing money to plug gaps. Crash probability 70% inside of 6 months. And then they go out to project 180 to 270 days. That's mid-2026. If gold reevaluation chatter surfaces, that's the signal that U.S. is admitting it cannot fund itself. So we're going to see. We're going to see. But why they put it out there and what you should be doing. They said build cash and liquidity buffers. So at this point, I would say, I don't know. I would have anything, and just make sure you have whatever basics you have. You can have as far as food. You know, Blue Monster Prep. Make sure you have buckets of food that have decades worth of shelf life. There's that. And then, I don't know. I mean, you hear about buying the dip and stuff like that. Buying an ounce of silver at $50. I mean, it's better than $4,000, which is where silver, some people say silver, an ounce of silver should be. I would say if you haven't stacked, you start stacking a little bit. Because why not? Christmas is coming up. I always do this stuff. But $50 for that ounce. Man, oh man. I think about all the silver I gave people for Christmas over the last couple of years. I hope they all kept it. Right? Thinks I'm some weird Willy Wonka character when I go around and flip them a coin. Oh, thanks, Frank. Hopefully they all understand, you know? But, yeah, I'll get Tony Arterburn on the show sometime soon. God, I got to talk to him. This would have been a crazy day. But the real question is, what does this mean on a war, the war footing? Is this tied to war, or is this the chickens coming home to roost? Because how many times have we talked loosely about economic crashes and the stability of the dollar and all that stuff? And I'm not the guy to come to really get deep analysis on this stuff, which is why I bring on guests. But I always ask the same question, since I started paying attention to this 20 some odd years ago, and I'm listening to Ron Paul, and I'm reading all this stuff. I'm getting deep in on Milton Friedman and all the rest. I would have thought that it was all done. I mean, we would have already bottomed out by 2007. Then 2008 rolls around. Like, okay, I guess this is it. And now here we are 20 years after that. You say, well, one day the straw that breaks the camel's back is going to settle on top of the camel's back and break it. But we just keep stacking straw instead. 914-200-0269. It'd be great to hear from you. Really would. And in the meantime, I'm going to go to some of our creepier stories. I mean, especially one about AI. Jeff was talking about that a little bit here. William Crane says, the only good commie. Jeez, I can't read this. It's nuts. I can't read all that, William. Dead this person, dead. William is very emotional right now, and he wants everybody to not be here, essentially. But thank you for supporting the show. I can't... Just some... Good Lord. All right. So, anyway, here we have it. I wanted to bring this up. This is a very creepy thing that happened on YouTube. And it's things that are starting to happen a little bit more. Now, you remember in 2017... See, right now we got this James Comey thing going on, and I'll tell you, if this was happening in 2017, you wouldn't have heard the end of it with me. Wouldn't have heard the end of it with me. But in 17 and 18, all we were doing, we were getting fed, hey, listen, no, the indictments for James Comey are coming down the pike. Just trust me. They need it to be airtight. They need it to be air. They only have one shot at this. If they don't nail him dead to rights, then that's it. They need it to be airtight. Of course, that didn't last too long. Just started realizing that nothing was going to happen, and now here we are again. James Comey's got indicted. I saw that John Brennan went on MSNBC and said that he has taken the time to evaluate his legal position and believes he did nothing wrong. So. That's it. I guess he's writing himself a blank check, a get out of jail free card. But there are people, it's not really about the individual. It's about the networks they're plugged into, and these people are still very connected. And they are connected to a lot of people in those networks. And the reason why the networks respond time and time again is to make sure that they have an adequate buffer between other network members and the person who has fallen into the hot seat. So we will see over the next couple of weeks what happens to James Comey and what charges stick and where it all leads, and if it is if he sings, if he's a songbird that everybody says he is, I don't know. But around that same time is when we started getting all other things that were getting excited, and that was about deepfakes. There's every week, deepfakes are coming. And it's going to be bad. It's going to be all over the place. And then you know what? We didn't really get them. But we started getting AI. Were they always talking about this? Just these publicly available programs the entire time? Because it seemed like the way that they were reporting on deepfakes is that there were nefarious actors, state actors, who had already made a whole bunch of things, and they were going to be releasing it sometime soon. And we thought, how convenient is this? It's a hedge against all the frazzle drip, video rumors and things like that. And of course, nothing happened, except they kind of seeded the public consciousness with the idea that deep fakes could be anything, and that going forward, we're heading into an era where you can't really trust what you're seeing. You can't really trust what you're seeing. And now they're doing that right now for things that are not even generated by computer. You know, something can just happen out there in the real world, and one side will say it's black and the other side will say it's white. And it really comes down to whether or not the whole Laurel and Yanni thing, and whether or not the dress is blue and, you know, gold and white, or black and blue, or whatever the hell it was. It's the same exact thing. But now we're adding into the mix the AI video generation. There's one thing that happened on YouTube recently that you got to listen to this. This was on futurism.com. YouTube removes disturbing AI slop. It's a channel that was filled with videos of, and this is not real, of women being murdered. Okay? Generated video of women being murdered. A disturbing YouTube channel was dedicated entirely to showing AI-generated videos of women being shot. Named Woman Shot AI, the channel racked up more than 175,000 views, which is not really a lot, since June of 2025. But, you know, any kind of demand for this stuff is disturbing. The outlet's investigation found that after 404 sent YouTube a request for comment, the channel was finally taken down. It left behind a grisly legacy. The veritable snuff film hub uploaded 27 videos and gained a following of nearly 1,200 subscribers. A small, but I can go live every night. Over the last year, I've gone live almost every weeknight for 2 hours at the same time. You want to talk about consistency, talking about culturally relevant things and other, whatever the hell it was. And just now, I think maybe over the course of this next week, we're going to finally break 103,000 subscribers. We've been stuck at 102 since last year. Okay? And I remember it. You know why? Because we were at 100,000 subscribers for like about a year before that. And then around the time that I went to the cabin in the Adirondacks last year is when we posted a clip of me and Matt from Cultivate Elevate talking about all the flooding that was happening in Abu Dhabi. Okay? And he was talking about I don't know what it was. One high altitude government project or another, cloud seeding, whatever the hell it was. But we put that out there around this time last year, and it went, I don't know, got a couple 100,000 views on YouTube or something, and brought in about 2,000 subscribers. And I was at the house the whole time. I said, damn, can we just recreate this a couple more times? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So one weekend, 2,000 subscribers. And ever since then, it's just been, you know, we're treading water. We're hanging out with all the same people, not losing anybody. But at the same time, maybe I could have been putting out AI videos of me seeding clouds or something like that, and I would have gotten 50,000 subscribers. They would have blamed me for everything in the world. Would have been bad attention. But this guy, since June, 1,200 subscribers. And all he was putting up was AI-generated videos of fake women being done away with. And you think about it, like, no, it's gone now. It's gone now. But you think about the kind of weird fetish crap that is going to be available now and has probably been there for a long time on like the dark web and other places there too, where at the very least you can just generate the stuff that might be a little bit hard to find. And you can customize exactly what you want to see, and just people who know how to do this stuff. I mean, you just think about this stuff. So again, even, you know, you want to talk about public expectations of what's coming our way, whether it be deep fakes or James Comey getting indicted and arrested and all that stuff, perp walked. We're getting weird versions of it all, and it's not, I don't know. It doesn't feel very good. I mean, what was ever going to feel good? The deep fake war, I thought that was exciting. I thought that was exciting because when you thought about that whole deep fake thing in 2017 going into 18, we're like, all right, we're going to see some shit. There's going to be some chaos in the media. We're going to see all types of stuff. We're going to see some terrible stuff probably, but we're going to at least have the ability to have people analyze whatever's going to be out there and say, this is the real thing. I thought it was going to be a war back then, but it's not. And all we're getting is strange LARPing porn. 530, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, hey, Frank. I take you off speaker. I was hearing you talk about numbers.
Yes.
And as far as audience.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, just talking about how some of these AI murder channels have been able to build a good amount of subscribers over the course of 2 months. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like one of my favorite bands is Travis. They're a Scottish band, they're like the real deal Coldplay, and Coldplay is just a knockoff of Travis, but they never hit big in America, and I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why. Like, let's say it's cool because when I listen to your show, it's like, as opposed to like, I used to listen to Steven Crowder when he had Dave Landau on there, and when they had their little argument where Steven was trying to basically muscle in on Dave Landau's money he was making on the weekends, kind of a thing, I stopped listening. So, but I know, so it's kind of like that thing where you listen to, like, let's say you listen to Led Zeppelin, and then you have your favorite local band, but you're putting them on the same pedestal as your favorite popular band. And so I don't understand why, when a show like yours is top notch, your number should be exceeding, name the big ones. I don't understand why, like going back to Travis, the band I was talking about, why they never broke America, and they're way better band than Coldplay.
Well, I mean, listen, the music is something. Whatever it is, and I appreciate the call and I appreciate the vote of confidence. It's there. You baked in a couple of really nice compliments in there, and listen, I've asked those same questions, but they're more so rhetorical to me. We're talking about, quite frankly, in particular, since about 2018, 2019. I knew we had to figure out a way to get a cohesive video team together. It's rough. You think about Fleckus, who goes live a couple times a week, and then Fleckus and Richard, they have a couple of days in between broadcasts where they can cut up stuff from the day before and just spend time taking things and putting it out there. I create an avalanche of content, of broadcast hours over the course of 4 or 5, sometimes 6 nights a week. For example, I mean, I know we're going to be away this week, but next week, that's the October 10th. I'll be live October 11th on that Saturday night. That's a 6-night week there, and they're all on average 2 hours a night. It's I can't spend any time the next day cutting things out. And when you have so it's really just a matter of how are you growing in a world that favors short form content. Music, I guess you got to find a gimmick, got to do something. I've seen some really creative bands doing that shit. But like anything else, very few people are going to stumble upon a 2-hour broadcast of Quite Frankly and just watch it just to see what it is. Okay, first of all, that kind of content is not being promoted anymore because all of the big platforms like YouTube and elsewhere are not really promoting all of their streaming services as much as they were in 2015 when it was still new. If you were using YouTube streaming services back then, that was great. They wanted to reward people for their consistency. But very shortly after that, about 3 or 4 years after that, is when everything started getting into shorter content. Reels, shorter. And if you want to grow something that is long form, you have to, at that point, you have to shift to be able to put shorter stuff out there to cast a wide net. and bring them on in. And some operations, it's easy to see that and plot the way forward. It's just hard to do it if you don't have the resources. Crowders and all those other. I mean, they have many millions of dollars on top of the tens of thousands of dollars they earn every day in super chats alone. They have many. You have 4 or 5 dedicated American videographers. I say American because you dip into the Philippines and Malaysia, and you can pay somebody $1,000 a month, and they are literally working. All their life revolves around you, because $1,000 converted into the Philippines and Malaysia is like, I mean, you are their employer. They wait for your orders, So that's the way you got to do it. That's the way everybody's got to do it. If you got a band out there right now and you're looking to do something, if you got any kind of an idea, it could be long form, but the way that you're going to have to get people's attention is by giving them bite-sized little clips that hit a certain tone and a certain level of, certain energy and topics that are trending or spooky, whatever. You got to intrigue people. And we're finally starting to break that ice. Took a long time to find some solutions, and we're still, I think we're like 90% there. But once it starts clicking on all cylinders, then we'll see. Hey, we're about to break 103,000 subscribers, and that is without uploading any snuff. So you got to give me some credit there. I could have been posting murder videos a long time ago, but I haven't gone that far. Anyway, so that's what's going on with this. But AI slop has become a persistent problem on social media platforms, especially YouTube, where monetizing your content is straightforward and where there's few limitations on the format video you can post. Now listen to this. Equally pernicious is the rise of boring history. We're back to that futurism article. Boring history and sleepy informational videos which aim to gently lull their listeners to sleep with ostensibly educational content before they can realize that what they're watching is complete nonsense. You could just listen to me. I'll put you to sleep. It might still be nonsense, but I'm real. Many of these are also hours in length, uploaded with unbelievable frequency. Yeah, because they are generated in the same way that they generate the Charlie Kirk assassination book that came out the day before the assassination. Or all of these life story books that are generated quickly on Amazon Kindle and all that stuff. Because you just tell AI to create a novel length book about a certain person, and then you send the manuscript to be a digital download on Amazon. The same thing is being done for just boring history, sleepy informational videos. Can you imagine that, going to sleep? I'm going to listen to something interesting tonight. And, perhaps then think about what you are subconsciously taking in. Think about that. What is going on subconsciously in that world? It's just nuts. Because where do you go from there? You went to sleep, like everybody said, I'm going to go to sleep and listen to, the French language. And hopefully when I wake up the next morning, I'm going to be able to have absorbed subconsciously some part of the French language that I was not able to do when I was up. Or maybe it just sinks in. Like you're downloading something in the Matrix. You're downloading your ability to, you're downloading Kung Fu and everything else. But imagine all the people who have gone to sleep listening to boring history and all that shit, and they're I don't know. It's worse than Humpty Dumpty. I get that. It's crazy. And the crazy thing about it, the crazier thing is that all of the machines that are generating this stuff are just Google. It's the VO3. Anyway, Bobby Lambert says, great show. Happy Monday, Franklies. Thank you. Joe Martinez gets in on the fun as well. And very soon we're going to be having John Ward join us. So if you want to get your last call in, please do so. Haywood says, breaking news. My nephew and his wife are pregnant with their second set of twins. First were boys. Won't know the sex of these two for a few weeks. Well, Haywood, that's incredible. Second set of twins. Got everything done in 2 shots. I mean, go for the third set. To hell with it. That's wonderful. Those Thanksgivings are going to be very, very nice. Incredible. William Crane says, if Trump fails to bring this republic to heel and put these commie wokies in the ground, then the ballot box has failed and we are not playing the vote harder game. Sincerely, combat infantry vet. Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, William, because there are a few things here in this article that I thought would be really interesting to bring up with John Ward, because he's got such a interesting way, and I think a familiar way of seeing the world. Where the hell is it? Where am I over here? Try again. Let's see. There we go. I saw this article from James Howard Kunstler that I'd like to bring up in a little bit. It's called The Big Lebowski Civil War. And I guess it would speak to what William in the chat room on the Rumble is talking about to a degree. I think so. But, you know, it would be good to bounce that off of my buddy John. Still, let's take a couple of calls, and I can also go to something else here, too. Because I got a couple of emails in here about some weird, spooky shit. Here's the first one. I got an email from Leonard on Patreon. This is not too much spooky, but it has to do with the trip sitter, being a trip sitter, okay? And we were talking about being guides to LSD trips and all that stuff. I wanted to throw this out there. Leonard says, Frank, I was a guide for many, many people in the early 90s for our LSD trips. My connect for supply was the chemist who made our batches. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of doses I took and trips I went on, I never once, not once, had a bad negative trip. I would take the people at my parties down their paths night after night. I'm well versed in the psychotropic experience. My greatest journeys, especially with my closest friends, were hand in hand with the reading interpretation of Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan series of books. I never read the full series. I just read that one book the one collection of quotes. I forgot what it was. I forgot what the title of the collection book was. The most important part of going through these trips was the person started from a peaceful mental state. As an aside, I would take LSD when I started feeling myself get sick. I would use it as a treatment for the common cold successfully each time. Previously, I sent you a link for some music I created. This creation coincided with my deep dives into frequencies and in pursuit of a music therapy license around 2012. Lullaby to a Lifeless Planet was recorded in 417 hertz based on my research into alternate tunings and the relationship to the human condition. I wonder how well Jeff Harman would have liked listening to this. Lastly, I began using ultrasound devices for various symptoms I had, muscle fatigue, pain. They work like magic. This area of study, the effects of frequency on human tissues, has been a major interest for me for years, and it's something I dream of creating a business around to help people heal. I get where Matt Xavier is coming from. Great episode, Frank. Wow. Well, I don't know. The whole trip sitting thing, I've been around, but I don't want to, I'm not getting in on it. I'm really not. I wonder if our guest that just showed up right now has ever been a trip sitter for somebody. John Ward, welcome to the show. It's been way too long. How the hell you been?
What's going on, Frank?
Oh, man. You look good. You sound good. Everything looks good over there.
You're not looking at double me, are you?
No. And we're just sitting side by side together.
I forget sometimes that you actually know what you're doing when it comes to producing a show.
But look, it actually looks like if the lights were just a little bit dimmer, it looks like you could be sitting right on the other side. Because we got this, it almost looks like the same mic boom and all that stuff. It's the same model mic.
Mine's nicer.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What is that? That's a 7B, right?
7. This is the nice one, man.
Mine's not as shiny as yours.
7 deep DB.
DB?
I don't know how to use it, but damn it, it's nice.
Wow, that's several decibels below mine. Well, anyway, it's good to see you, man. How's everything been?
Oh, it's been up and down in some ways, I guess, as you know, with the deacon. So shout out to the deacon. If you're a praying kind of person, send him a prayer, your support. He's good, and everything's good. He's just had to step away from making content, and that sort of threw a wrench in the plan to try to come up there for your thing, which we were.
No, it's listen, it's all right. I knew how enthusiastic both you and Deacon. I mean, Deacon was bouncing off the walls. I couldn't wait to hang out with him. So
I really liked coming up there that one time.
I knew that whatever was going on had to be dealt with, and I'm always in my prayers. He's a great guy, and so are you.
Like that black African actor says at the end of Gladiator, Frank, we will meet again, just not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Actually, when we get together, what we should do is we should bury some G.I. Joe figurines in some shallow dirt or something.
Create a myth. Create a story.
That's it. We should shallow grave. Oh man, I was talking the last time I was talking to you. I commented on that video that you put out for Charlie Kirk, in particular, about the duality between what we saw with Erica Kirk and the whole idea of forgiveness, and Donald Trump up there talking about how he doesn't like his enemies. He doesn't want the best for his enemies, and he wants to go out. And it reflects where people are really split. There's very few people who are indifferent about where we are, where we're going. But some people say no, it's far more powerful to forgive. But then everybody on the other side wonders, well, what's the line where justice needs to be served, where a punishment needs to be delivered? And I just wonder if you wanted to talk about that a little bit, because I got a lot of thoughts. We were talking about it leading up to your release and that show I was doing around that time, what the limits of forgiveness was. Especially when it came to things that warrant the death penalty, people who are actual physical threats to a society or a community or anything like that. Have you gone into that in your broadcasts at all?
Yeah, we've been focusing on Sundays from 4 till 6 p.m. I don't know if you're ever free, by the way, but you might have a blast. And so we're focusing on a couple of questions with literally anybody and anyone that's willing to talk about it, because it necessarily involves talking about some things that are uncomfortable or maybe not even allowed. And so it's about violence. It's about what is an American. Is there a color that matters? Is there a certain number of generations that matters? Can we coexist with each other? Is Islam compatible with Christianity? Is that compatible with Judaism? Are there other countries involved in influencing the United States and its government and its culture and things like that? Is one of those countries possibly Israel? That's an impossible, scary thing to talk about these days. Maybe that even had something to do with Charlie Kirk, if you're one of those people. So I think we realized, or at least I'll speak for myself, I realized that a lot of this stuff hasn't been well defined and therefore can't be agreed upon. And so we'll circle around to this violence thing here in a second. You go till 9, is that true?
Yeah, but we can go into the whatever.
No, I'm not gonna blast past that or anything. I'm gonna blast past that glass ceiling like a feminist looking for a job, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of ties in. So the violence thing, what is the limits of forgiveness? I think I can fairly confidently say, and this was sort of that video on Charlie Kirk that was mashed up with Full Metal Jacket. Stanley Kubrick did the heavy lifting there. I like to that film popped into my head when I saw Erica speak and when I saw Trump speak. And of course, in that film, or you can watch the video for a condensed version, but you have the main character who's Private Joker, who on his helmet has Born to Kill, but at the same time wears a peace sign. And he gets confronted to explain that, and the guy confronting him is much stupider than him, and so he sort of just gives a bullshit answer and goes on. The end of that film is they're marching through a country on fire as enemy combatants, singing the Mickey Mouse song, which is also not an accident. If you know Kubrick, everything wasn't intentional. But it's like, who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? And then things about we did our duty, we're nice, we share, we're kind. And yet they're walking with guns through a war-torn hellscape. And so that's my answer, Frank, for what it's worth on the limits of forgiveness. It's what you choose, but at the same time, there's this scary world out there where, infinite and none at the same time. Where do I personally stand on violence? I think it would be so much more horrible than most of us can understand. And if you're unfortunate enough to have that perspective, meaning you've lived through something somewhat similar to that, you get what I'm saying. It's not something you really wish upon anyone but the most horrible people. And the worst part of it is I feel this growing dread for the thing that I will have to become. I am willing to become that thing. I don't think I'll even hesitate to become that thing. And I think it's worth doing to save whatever it was the United States almost became and then fell back from. So, but it's a huge personal sacrifice to become that Nietzschean monster that stares into the abyss and lets it stare back. And I am honestly, I'm not black-pilled. My perspective on this is it's a necessary conflict that's coming. Perhaps it was written and was always going to happen and come at some point. But I don't think everything is over. I think it's going to get really bad. Probably in our lifetimes.
I would have to agree with you. I have to agree, and that's what we're talking about tonight, at least in the short spurts when I bring on friends of mine like Jeff Harman. We talk about astro cycles, what's going on in the skies, and what that usually has shown, and throughout history, revolution and all that other stuff, just to kind of see where we're heading. Because there's so many things in flux. There's so many things that both sides are looking for transition here, whether it be how to make peace or how to reform we have number of war zones that are kind of hot, very hot. Then we have dollars in both Europe and the United States that need some kind of redefining of what they are and what their value is, and there's so much riding on that. Then we have natural resources that that we're woefully addicted to, but at the same time, in the hands of a few short list of people. But I got this here for you. It was by James Howard Kunstler. He says the Big Lebowski Civil War is coming. And I thought that this would be perfect for you we can read along together, and you can just stop along the way. Wherever the hell I'm going to just read a little bit of this. I have some highlights. Stop me and jump in and just give me your thoughts as we go along the way. And here's what he said about this. He said, when the newly formed Confederacy attacked Fort Sumter in Charleston Bay, April 1861, they ignited the Civil War. When Charlie Kirk was murdered in 2025, Civil War 2.0 kicked off. The enemy this time are not Confederates with a coherent command structure and goal. They are an army of nihilists like the gang in The Big Lebowski, who, for one reason or another, have failed to launch lives of meaning and purpose, and so have adopted the purpose of destroying the country they cannot thrive in. Unlike The Big Lebowski, this is not a joke, but it's obviously a different sort of civil war than the first one.
I like this framing already.
Okay, I knew you would. First of all, Kunstler writes very similar to how you write, and so when I was reading,
I think I've told you before, but I am a terrible consumer of content. I'm not being arrogant or pretentious or pretending. I don't know him or anyone else other than you and the Deacon, so I'm going to check him out.
I think you would love his social commentary. It appears that many of these nihilists, especially the ones amalgamated as Antifa, are straight up mentally ill. Crazed young women too untamed to find a mate, many obese and self-mutilated like tattooed savages with steel bones in their noses. Young men, hormones afire, likewise frustrated, escaping into sexual fetish and psychotic obsessions with demons, violence, blame, and enmity. There is, for sure, plenty to complain about in American life as currently organized. We've been rooked into college loans, are drowning in unpayable debt, are unable to find meaningful work in an economy dominated by cruelly gigantic companies, are unable to afford a place of their own and to eat and sleep in, whose bodies and minds are ravaged by junk food and pharma products. Schools function like minimal security prisons. And all of this discontent gets converted, abracadabra, into political ideology. The old reliable package of Marxism works whenever some people feel cheated out of meaning, purpose, and a livelihood. And so this anguished cohort of young, defeated and making a life, driven mentally ill by their surroundings, hounded by the endless prompts of their beloved smartphones, wrecked by the things they put into their bodies, and broken by their demoralizing failures because become the useful idiots of their political elders. So what do you think about that there too? That kind of transition point?
Yeah, the question is this on purpose or by accident? And I definitely lean to on purpose. Although there's definitely some I'm not one of those rah guys or, pick yourself up by your bootstrap guys. I started 10 years ago trying to laugh at this stuff because I already had gallows humor. And I do feel like definitely young people, but even some of these Antifa people, it's not their fault. You get born into some sort of family, if you're lucky, or born in some way that you don't control. And I do think a lot of these people, don't worry, I'm going to get quite murderous against them here in a minute, but a lot of these people went through stuff at a point where they couldn't. So you're sexually molested or something like that is the classic one. I really think that has a lot to do with it, with absent parents, or even worse, parents that are present and have a negative effect. You can interpret that how you will. But at some point in your life, and I'm speaking from personal experience, you gotta understand and grow up. And I don't know what allows you to gain this perspective. One of the things for sure is a near-death experience. Something about almost dying or seeing somebody die or almost die. This is even true, by the way, in the story of the Buddha. He was this rich prince, and it wasn't until this one day he saw a criminal be executed that he woke the fuck up and was like, wow, that's really crazy. I need to go out and have some experiences and see how this all works. So it's a combination of people that had shitty, unfortunate circumstances who, for whatever reason, and a big part of it was those circumstances, didn't ever get out and manage to meet other positive, strong people. Or that's like Nietzsche says, strong and weak, or slave morality, master morality. Or as Game of Thrones talks about it, same thing. Dorne won't never have a weak king again, but it's the same thing. And so if you never actually meet those people and realize they're quite good and admirable and impressive and stand in the face of all this bullshit, you start to resent them, and you start to only run into other pieces of shit like yourself, and it creates this crazy piece of shit vortex down into hell. And there is a point past that which I don't really think you can be saved. I think I am a pretty understanding and open-minded person. I always like the Chesterton quote, the point of an open mind is to close it again on something solid. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm not really interested in talking to anybody on the left anymore, and I consider that to be not my fault in any way whatsoever, and I consider that I've done everything I possibly could. I ain't getting abused anymore. End of the line. And that is a big part of it as well, tying this all together, I guess, maybe if I can, is you're going to tolerate an amount of abuse that is proportional to your self-worth or self-esteem, or maybe your ability to visualize into the future something that is better than it currently is. So all of this stuff in this article you're talking about, as they're saying, is, I think, by design to whittle down your self-worth and also your consciousness and your thinking, that you will begin to accept incrementally a shittier and shittier state of existence, the slow boiling frog in the pot of water. To me, it's the choice is now very obvious. So again, you and I now are in this 30 to 50-year-old male range where we should be the leaders of the tribe, so to speak, although that's been taken from us in some ways too. So none of this is answers, I guess, Frank. I'm just kind of calling it as I see it. And I had made started a video series a while back. I do intend to finish, but this old 1500s poem that is very similar to Animal Farm and a lot of 1984, but Pugna Porcorum, the pig war. I think people have known this is sort of yet one of the battles we have to fight is finding food, finding shelter, breathing air, not getting eaten by a bear. Great. After you fix those problems, there's this new enemy from within, and that is other people, or as the poem says, other pigs. And I don't think this battle ever really stops or ends. And I think maybe what's unique about it now is technology, number one, that the old pigs have an ability to permanently censor us. That like really couldn't have been done up until the point of computers. The tyrants would die and things would sort of right themselves over time, one way or another. Groups would naturally go through different forms of government and revolution and rising and falling. But with technology, that can't really happen anymore. I don't want to be too negative, Frank.
No. Yeah, I'm waiting to throw in there, and it's something that I think that I would love to see you. I mean, you do whatever the hell you want, but I love to see you sink your teeth into this one because I think it really goes hand in hand. About a month or two ago in July, in July, we did a film club gathering for Gangs of New York. And Gangs of New York, that's what you're talking about right here. You talk about these bloody battles at the 5 points.
Great example.
And it goes through everything. You say, is it ever really? Does it ever get better? And I think that there's these lulls in between what is just naturally what are these crazy times, and I don't know. It's just, maybe that's just what Thomas Jefferson was talking about. Maybe it's not necessarily the tree of liberty. Maybe it's just we get antsy every once in a while. We need to brawl or something happens, because there's the end of Gangs of New York when you just see the overgrowth on those hallowed grounds, these magmatic local heroes that fought each other with cleavers in the middle of the street to be able to stay. This was their place. And meanwhile, there is 200 years, 150 years of progress that just steamrolled right past their graves. And the United States built itself around it. The New York City, if you think about it, it's crazy, man. I think about it a lot. The real question is, in Gangs of New York, you had two sides that were, they were passionate. They were ready to risk it all, but they had their faith, they had their wits about them, and they had the ability and the willingness to go out there and on what they believed to be was the battlefield. It wasn't just a gang fight. This was thousands of years of history of their people that was playing out again in just another place, and they had to stay true. But here's the end of this one. At the end of this article here, as Kunstler is talking about what we're facing right now and who the enemy really is, and how really off base, how debased they are, how mentally ill they are, how they really have no purpose and they have no drive. It's a very strange, they're volatile, no doubt about it, volatile and unwilling to speak with us. That's why I agree with you. I've been invited several times over the last couple of months alone to meet certain channel owners and whatever in New York City in front of Trump Tower, to be there and put the microphone in people's faces and do little debates on the sidewalk. I'm like, no. Gaining a couple of followers is not that important to me to actually take a day out of my life and go stare insanity in the face. It's not.
How wild that we, despite being on the internet, we actually give a shit. What a novel idea. It doesn't even occur to them.
I know.
We must be doing it for the same reasons that they are.
Just to be a lion tamer or something like that. But listen to this. Here's the last bit here. Neither the Democrat Party nor their Antifa foot soldiers have a sane and coherent approach to this set of problems. The remaining option for them is to stay insane, to fight for crazy things like men in women's swim lane, and to act out their incoherent rage. If they keep escalating, the remaining sane 69% or so of America will opt to put them down briskly and harshly. And it looks like that is about to happen. Now, I don't know what he means by that. I don't know to what degree, but we're starting to see that people are not listening to the screeching anymore, and are a lot less inclined to slink back and shut up because the person screeching is a girl who believes they're a boy or vice versa, and they don't want to step in any puddles or anything like that. People care less than ever before about being called a racist, about being called a fascist. So when that care is gone, then what do we have? We have incoherent, mentally ill people who are very, very physically fragile and frail, and other people who just really want to get on with their lives. And the climate protest blocking traffic. I don't think that shit's going to fly for too much longer.
No, I like to think we're reaching the end of those times. I don't think the mentally ill people, though, Frank, are going to be the ones who back down first. They're going to make you become something that you're better than, and if given the choice would not be. But they're just not going to stop. Can you pull that article back up one more time?
Absolutely. Hold on a second. Here we go.
At the end there. I do. Yeah, I somewhat worry that people so there's two things in this last paragraph. Number one, I don't think everyone on the right, 60% or whatever it is about to rise up. I think it's going to start with someone like me, but somebody who actually has money or something like that. I don't know. But that's myth number one, that there's going to be this come together kumbaya moment that just like happens like in a movie, like we mount the hill, like painted like Braveheart. What's just starting right now is the organizational phase, but that is happening amongst serious men on the right. And that is happening because after Charlie Kirk, everybody realized how disorganized we actually were, that there was no effective way to implement any sort of plan of action. And I think that's going to take years. And my guess is at least till the end of Trump's term. These things, I think we're about the same age. You start to realize that 10 years ago versus 30 years old versus almost 40, that this shit just moves really freaking slow. And I do think the interest of the shadowy figures on either side of this conflict is still mostly money and control. And that's always easier won rationally than insanely. But it is a question of have the actual leadership, whoever they are, have they actually gone insane as well? Are they using these leftists as useful idiots, as the beginning of the article says? Or is this literally some bubbling up from the depths of hell of a final battle Armageddon type shit that's about to go down? I don't know, but I do know we'll be organized, and that's nice.
It will, but listen to this. And here's another thing I wanted to ask you about. I won't keep it for too much longer, though. We have to do.
You're good, yeah.
We have to do longer segments like this. I know I threw this at you real quick today, but still.
Sorry to jump in last minute, but we'll do another one.
No, it's all right. So obviously, third congressional, the third Continental Congress. That's been a long-standing project of yours as well. And here is the second to last paragraph here from Kunstler, and he says we need a new armature, but one based on voluntary exchange, which is to say economic liberty, not top-down communist-style centralized planning. Everywhere that has been tried is failed and blew up. Euro-style socialism light is not workable. It's a not workable choice anywhere either because we are leaving behind the cheap energy economy and the geopolitical deals that made 6-week vacations, retirement at 60, and free medicine possible. And what I'm saying to this is one of the other things that left out of it, because of course you can't put everything in there, is that we're seeing a lot of things happen. For example, my daughter is never going to be in one of these schools that function like the minimal security prison. This right here is not happening, and a lot of people are opting out of traditional school or what has become traditional schooling. The other thing is that here you and I are, and over the years, hundreds of thousands of people have tuned in to watch our streams or our video productions, and this is why nobody's watching the television anymore. I mean, they're fighting. They're having viewership battles that are peaking at 3 million across a nation of, on the books, 365 million. You know, that's who the nighttime cable kings are. 3 million viewers cumulatively in a country of nearly
median age of 65.
Yeah, exactly. It's all dying away. So I see that kind of reforming the organizing there going on. There are things that really need to be addressed in the culture that are getting addressed. You can see that there's so much that can't take root if people are not on board for holding up the institutions that are essentially crazy people factories. And I think that we're undercutting them finally in small but significant ways.
I do think, and I'll finish up here quickly, but we have this problem already, even like, so you take groups that you would think would be aligned, let's say all Christian people. Second, the unification starts, there starts to be nitpicking over these fucking fine points that don't matter at all. And I would call that mentally ill, frankly. Is like, do you want to win or do you want to keep the third word on page 742 in the copy of the Bible that you control anyway? I don't care. You do what you want. That has to be figured out. And that's kind of that question, what is an American? Because I think we all think we agree on this until you start talking about it. So I do hope you'll come on if you ever get a chance on a Sunday on 3CC sometime. But to finish up with a quote from another Scorsese movie, The Departed, right at the very beginning, something I've always found to ring true is nobody gives it to you. You have to take it. And that's how this country was founded. And we've all been taught in our lifetimes anyway that is not a very nice thing to do. But it is necessary, I think.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because
I'm going to stare at a mirror this size on my wall like Matthew McConaughey in True Detective and contemplate that tonight.
Oh, nice. Okay, you know what? Maybe we should actually do maybe we should just do a True Detective season 1.
That season I'd be down for.
Okay, maybe we can do a season 1 review or something like that. There's so much in there. And I'm with you. We have to break up the circular firing squad. The right is really great at killing its own momentum by sending itself into purity spirals. And it's an
individualism problem for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm with you on that one. You got to be smart. And
I'll admit I'm part of it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm innocent.
No,
I'm pretty hard to get along. Pretty disagreeable guy. It is what it is.
It's what we got to do. I appreciate the time you've spent with us tonight, my friend, and we'll do it again soon. And I definitely have to do a Sunday drop in. So let me know what the schedule's like. I'll make it happen soon.
Definitely, and I'd like to come back up there physically at some point, but I'll be in touch 100%.
Send my best. You got to send my best to Deacon and everybody. If you don't know who John is, I got his link in the description of the episode. Click right through and subscribe to his channel. And actually, I've got his Charlie Kirk Full Metal Jacket video, I believe, in the Interesting Shite playlist. So go check it out there if you need a jump point. So thanks again, man. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take it easy, Frank.
Take care. All right, everybody. There we go. Let me get in. We got to do that more often. Absolutely. You know, it's easy to bridge the gap from where he is. We don't have to always travel many hours to hang out with each other. Sometimes you can just get on the Zoom. He's got a nice setup over there. Why not? Bobby Lambert says, great show. Happy Monday, Franklies. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you so much. Over on Rumble, let me just make sure I got everybody. Did I? And I have. Wonderful. And as far as the pilled goes, I'm going to be over there. You know what? I'm going to read the gold pills in a few minutes when I'm over there on pilled for extra innings. Head on over. I'm going to watch some videos that I have lined up over here, or maybe we can do a little joy scrolling together. I'll be talking to the general chat. I'm going to drop the pilled link into the several chat rooms right now. I appreciate you all so much. Tomorrow's another night. Speaking of all those homeschooling and everybody breaking free of the system, I've got Cheryl Daly and Barbie Rivera coming on for a couple minutes in the first half tomorrow night to hang out with me and just talk a little back to school and what they see going on out there and whatever. So that'll be great. In the second half, I'll find something else to do. Maybe sprinkle in a little bit more creepy. That's all for me. See you in a bit.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes. Quite Frankly's Film Before a Live Studio Audience. And thank you so much for all of your wonderful time. Become a sponsor of the show. You can leave a super chat overnight at quitefranklysuperchat.com. I'll read it tomorrow, and you will be automatically entered into this gigantic cozy basket drawing that I'll definitely, I mean, this is going to be big. This is such a great basket. You're going to love it. But become a monthly sponsor. quitefrankly.tv/sponsor, or any of the links in the description below. It'd be wonderful to call you boss lady or boss man. Okay. I'll see you at extra innings on the flip side. You